This episode is brought to you by the Homer and Mildred S. Scott Foundation. You can contact the Homer and Mildred Scott Foundation at jenny.craft@scottfoundation.org. And welcome back in, all you Wyoming knuckleheads. This is another episode of GoBeWYO. I'm your host, Erin Gray. I have Carter Wells from DYT running the cameras. And our special guests today are from the Homer and Mildred Scott Foundation and Scott Foundations, because we were just talking about that. But we have on the far right, we've got Jenny Craft, Executive Director, been there for 11 years. And then to her right is Chairwoman of the board, Arin Waddel. So Erin and Jenny, thanks for coming by today.
Thank you for inviting us.
We're excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited to learn a little bit about the foundation. You know, being from Sheridan, I think I've definitely benefited from the foundation. So I need to know what's the history of it, how did it come about, and what else you guys have going on. So I'm super excited about this. So,
history. I'm thinking I should have studied up a little bit more this morning. So it'll be interesting as we maybe piece together the backstory of Homer and Mildred. Do you want to start, Erin, or?
Nope.
Okay.
You take it away.
So my understanding, my interpretation, Homer and Mildred met in the early mid-1900s and eventually found their way to Sheridan, Wyoming. Homer worked for the Kiewit Foundation, so traveled quite a bit in the area, built a lot of roads through our state, and really fell in love with the landscape of Sheridan County. And landed, this is a story, I don't know if it's true or folklore, Erin, but when Homer couldn't purchase any more Kiewit stock, I mean, he was a great businessman, good business mind, investing for the future for his family, he started investing in land. So he started purchasing plots of land out in Tongue River Valley, which now today is the Padlock Ranch, which is a huge legacy also for the Scott family. And really solidified their roots being here, where they raised many of their children, though some went away to boarding school or had different educational experiences.
Some were sent away.
There is that story,
no
too.
comment, but which uncle was sent away?
So as Homer continued to work and travel, I think Mildred made her roots here in Sheridan County, and they lived out in the Tongue River Valley and also in Sheridan. And I'm trying to think what year he bought the first bank. So he bought Bank of Commerce in Sheridan on Main Street, just a little tiny bank.
I can't remember.
I want to say it was the mid-60s, 1960s, 1970s. We'll do some fact checking. Maybe there can be some sub notes to this podcast.
Some links there, yes.
And that's where he started with First Interstate, which then became First Interstate Bank, which now has grown to be a huge corporation encompassing like 7 or 10 states in the upper Northwest. But was able to generate some wealth through owning the bank and just, again, a sound businessman. And in the 1980s is when his trust document was written. So he knew early on that he wanted to be a philanthropist, was an active, living, engaged philanthropist as well, gave a lot to the Sheridan community and his alma mater schools, but wrote a trust document so that he would leave funds behind to support this community. And the mission statement or the focus really is investing in people to make Sheridan a great place to live and work. And he just really saw providing opportunities for young people. He notes religious, educational, and character building opportunities in his trust document, and wanting to afford opportunities that just create and help cultivate Sheridan to be the great community it is today.
Yeah, one of the best examples, if you go down to the YMCA, Homer and Mildred Scott helped build that Y, and if you travel throughout the United States, you won't find a better YMCA. And that's in part to Homer and his friends that put in their own personal money to build that Y. And so the Roberts family, so there's a great picture of, anyway, when you were talking about history and legacy, and so now the grandchildren of those initial funders are now they themselves giving back to this community. So there's a picture of John Heineman and Haley Roberts, isn't it?
Yeah.
Who are continuing to build the pools. So the very original pools those are being converted, and so that so I think that's really fantastic. It's just one example of Homer and Mildred's vision and supportive community, because Homer himself benefited from the YMCA when he years and years when he was a young man. This is again could be a story, but this is what Susan Scott Heineman, who's my mother-in-law, has told me, but needed a place to stay, and so the Y was a safe place. It's a Christian,
right?
Yeah, young men's Christian association, right? Yeah.
Yes.
So anyway, it's and so he invested in it heavily. So that's just a great example, and that still lives on. His foundation, their foundation, has for years supported the YMCA, and that's I don't know how many years that stretches out, but it's pretty special.
Yeah. That's awesome. No, that's a great story, and that's okay if it's a story, but he needed help and needed a place to stay, and the YMCA was there for him, so that's wonderful that he gave back to something that helped him get through it. So in his trust document, we were talking about this, I think YMCA sounds like was definitely on his list. What were the other two items that he specifically wrote out that needed to be addressed?
The other two, he worked with the Salvation Army. And again, in the 70s and 80s, it had maybe a different focus as it's evolved as an organization now in our community. But we continue to support, the Scott Foundation continues to support our local Salvation Army. And again, just making sure opportunities are available for people to achieve more or achieve their own goals in life and have a sustainable way of living. And then also the Children's Center. He got connected early to Janet and Scotty Scott, Scotty, his son, so Homer Jr., and they were very passionate about having childcare opportunities for Sheridan County working families. And we laugh, there's a lot of stories there too. He and Janet Scott were sort of the de facto supervisors in building the Children's Center where it exists today on Highland Hill up at the top. Homer Sr. Awarded some funds and worked with that organization. Janet was on the board, and she'd go every day, and talk to the crew and make sure they were on a timeline. We've got to get this building built, and so there are rooms at the center today still named after Homer Scott, and he was the early supporter to help make that come to fruition for our community. And back to the Y, he also took boxing lessons. So there's a little athletic lineage through the Scott family. Mm-hmm. And Homer Sr. took boxing lessons at the Y, and they have some photos of it. And that was always an important thing for him, for people to be fit.
Sure.
And so he, again, I think the Y's anniversary is 1964. So it was in the early 60s. He again, with a group of local businessmen and investors and nonprofit work, he basically brought the idea to Sheridan and said, we need to start a YMCA. So they rented a building and then set to work and building at their current site on Jefferson Street. So he's a philanthropist of action and activity, and then heavily has invested in many things in the community.
And I would just dovetail in. Susan would want me to talk about Mildred a little bit. Mildred Scott she loved music, so it's not in the trust document, but the WYO Theater, we have a long history of giving to the WYO for the children's programming, and have honored Mildred Scott especially about music, the performing arts. There are grandchildren and great-grandchildren who have been heavily involved in music. Susan Baker loved the WYO, and her daughter Brecken has always been involved in music and performance. And so it's not in the trust document, but that's another wonderful thing about sort of the legacy and where we have given. So I would give a shout out to that. There still is a grand piano out at the Padlock Ranch that Mildred had brought there, and to honor her, we have it tuned, so it's still in the house out there. So it's anyway music too, not just sports or whatever. I just think music and art is important to Mildred.
The arts. Yeah, absolutely. Well, and let's dive into this a little bit. That's very, I think, having so many different nonprofits in, and then maybe people that have moved here. Like we had film producer Bruce Moriarty, and I asked him, like, why did you like this place? And a lot of the answers are people. And I know it's a very, people that are from here were like, oh, okay, that's a very cliche thing to say. But I think there's a reason for that. And I feel like the Scott Foundation being out here for so long, and he's forward thinking of, child development, the YMCA, from the 60s. Talk about the process of, that's obviously changed. The Salvation Army has changed as an organization, and but his vision was people and sustainability and youth. I think that's a big thing that's a talk right now about, like, how do we keep our youth here, or how do we prepare our youth? So what's that process been like throughout the family, different generations running these foundations, and just
Erin, what's your question? No, I'm just kidding. I'm just giving you
What
a hard
is the
time.
question? That's good.
No, I'm just listening and thinking of your initial comment about, is it cheesy or cliche about it's the people. I strongly believe it is the people, and that is what makes Sheridan such a great place to live, because people really do engage. They give back, they get involved, they care about this space, about the landscape, and also about each other. And I think that's just part of the Scott family. For me, having worked with them and for them for over a decade, previous to the Scott Foundation, I worked for the Center for a Vital Community, which was started by the Scott family. So several members of the Scott family then worked with the foundation to support the initial funding required with Sheridan College to create this organization whose sole goal is engaging citizens. I mean, that's it. That's what they program, is citizen development, leadership, capacity building, nonprofit support. So yeah, he saw a great, and I think many of the Scots still today see a great value in investing in the people, so that people then there's a ripple effect. It carries forward, whether it's creative arts, whether it's a cattle ranch, coal mine, a sporting team, education, teacher, professionals, business, banking, they just invest in people to enhance quality of life, and then all of these nice supports come around it. And I just think that's really a value and a thread for the family that's important no matter where they live. And you see that in other pockets where they reside. And just the Homer and Mildred Scott Foundation, our focus is Sheridan County. So we're broad in what we can fund and where we partner, just concentrated geographically to this space.
And I would love to dive into that a little deeper. You were talking about what Bruce said about Sheridan and the people. I would add that John and I lived in Bozeman when he was going to graduate school, and we still have a lot of really good friends there. They come here and they visit us, often. They're shocked. So here's some examples. They're like, we don't have a Y like this. So that's number one. So the pathways, the Sheridan County Land Trust, all of the incredible work that they're doing throughout Sheridan County so that everybody can have access to trails right out their back door. That's their mission. And of course, Homer and Mildred Scott Foundation, we support them. And that trail system, it was a partnership between the city of Sheridan, right, initially. So, and partnering with public and private monies with support of these nonprofits. So I think it's incredible that you can go from Sheridan College all the way to North Main, basically avoiding traffic, and the pathways they're built wide and beautiful, and there's places where you can stop and reflect. So that means if you're 95 or 5 months old and you see moms in their joggers and people biking. I just think that's unbelievable for a small town. And our friends from Bozeman are like, we don't have anything like this because there's not that public-private partnership. Right. And, again, the city of Sheridan donated $4 million for that pool project, which was, $18.7 million. And all of us pooling our resources for the greater good instead of that concept of, well, I've got mine and good luck. Right. So, I think it's just incredible. Some of these things where we have partnered and been collaborative as a whole, and not worrying about, well, I'm not gonna give because there's this fear of limited resources, and so it's really rare, and I would say that it's people, but it's also relationship building. I would really want to champion and support Jenny in the way that she goes out. She's the face of our foundation, and she's constantly meeting with people, having conversations, reaching out. We talk about being conveners, so conveners and dreamers. So one thing a foundation can do is that we can take bigger risks because we're not worried about the bottom line. We've been entrusted with these public funds, and we're very, very careful and do the homework and the research to where we do invest. But it's not like we are running a nonprofit where you are scrambling, or running a for-profit, which you are, so we can take and dream a little bit bigger and then make those connections, which take time, right? Relationship building takes a long, long time. And I would say our foundation is really, really good about building these relationships and then making this place an incredible place where people want to be. I would say it's an economic driver. So people often say, you think of nonprofits as sidelines, and I wish I had the number off the top of my head. Jill Benson, who's the new executive director of the Sage Community Arts Center, she has some great data points about the economy of nonprofits, especially around the arts. But I would say too, when people move here, they're like, wow, I love the trail system, or wow, I love, all of these things. And, the school district, I love the school district. Well, great things are happening in this school because of nonprofits, right? So the Homer and Mildred Scott Foundation, I'm going on a tangent, I know, but we were and it's been, Kassan would tell me it's been 7 years that we have supported the Parent Liaison Program, which is a completely privately funded program that they work for Compass Center for Families, but they're privately funded to help the public schools, right? It's amazing. So they build relationships with all families, but especially families in need. And it's so nice to have a voice where parents can be heard and supported without being afraid, being terrified by the administration or a principal. And don't get me wrong, I'm actually on the school board, so don't. So I love Sheridan County School District number 2, but that's another example about people wanting to raise their kiddos here because there's all this great support. Big Brother Big Sisters is actually, the office is inside the high school. Again, a nonprofit. So these private dollars inside a public space. So I just think all of that relationship building and being collaborative, it really works well here. And you go to other places throughout the West that are beautiful, great places to live, like Bozeman, but there just is not that collaboration.
Sure.
Can you tell we're not passionate about this?
Right, yeah.
So
it's boring. So boring.
And that was great. I didn't have a question, but that's what I wanted right there. So that was awesome.
I'll give you one other example because I think it's a fun, very tangible example of that collaboration she's speaking of. So I don't know what to call it, but the North Main interchange, the pathway that's there currently. So that was owned by a private landowner who a time came available that he was ready to sell it, could sell it for huge development, could have put another fast food restaurant out there. But there was some vision from local nonprofits and from the community of extending the pathway and thinking potentially down the road a school could be out that direction. Well, they didn't have the funds to buy from the private individual. So the Homer and Mildred Scott Foundation actually purchased the property, worked with the Sheridan Community Land Trust, who raised other funds from other foundations and local people to put a conservation easement on the property. And then we gave it back to they bought it back from the Scott Foundation at a slightly lower rate because we had put our investment into it as well. And it was a grant, a charitable distribution to them. And then they ultimately sold it to the city. And so it's extended the pathway all the way out there. And it happened in about 18 months' time, maybe a little under 2 years, but couldn't have happened if there wasn't foundation dollars to purchase it, hold it, resell, develop the pathway. It's just a great example of we were part of that. No one would probably know, but we were part of that. And it took a lot of work behind the scenes to all the details of making that happen. But I ride that pathway on my bike all the time. It's beautiful. It's an extension, and you see future growth happening out there now. So it's going to be a real benefit for years to come.
Wonderful.
That's a park. There's the Malcolm Wallop Park that was dedicated. And so, we were part of that. And it's, and everybody benefits, not just like, it could have been,
Yeah, wonderful. We've had the land trust in studio twice. I went to their office way back when with some crappy stuff, but that was, anyways, love Brad and Chris. That's wonderful. I didn't know the Scott Foundation was a part of that Wallop Park and that trail system out there. What are some other big successes that you guys have been a part of late? So
we are really pleased that we had the opportunity to buy the entire NSI campus. It's a bold move. It's really a bold move for a foundation, and we are just at the beginning stages of figuring out our vision and mission. And as we've learned, the buzzword, a lot of it depends. A lot of things depend on. It's just for me. I've walked the land. It's a beautiful, beautiful place, and I don't know what we will do, but the idea that we are holding it for hopefully many people to benefit, living, being, working, playing, growing things out there. I know there could have been people who come in and purchased it for. Let's just say the hook and bullet crowd and scrape all of the dorms out there and just build, 3 starter castles, and that would benefit 3 people. Our hope this potentially would benefit many because it's so beautiful, and it's only 3 minutes from downtown, from the bank, from First Interstate Bank. So I'm really, really excited about it. There's lots and lots of work out there to do just to even just care for it or winterize the buildings that are out there. They need some loving, but it's a huge potential for us, and these opportunities don't come along very often. That particular property, it's a once in a lifetime chance, and I would want to thank every trustee who voted. We were unanimous in the purchase. Again, really rare to think about where we were in the process of thinking about owning it, and then moving that in a pretty short amount of time to actually closing on the land.
That's fantastic. How big is that property again? It's pretty massive.
229 acres.
Yeah.
And I don't know what stage either of you are in life of buying a home. If you've bought your first home, we've just bought 7 dormitories, a gymnasium, a cafeteria with a commercial kitchen, a shop, several outbuildings. I'm like, wow, and 200 plus acres.
Yeah.
A farm, a barn.
There's a farm in the back.
A lot of opportunities here.
The opportunities the list is too long, frankly, and that will be the work of the trustees, I think, in the next few months to prioritize, to listen to community partners, to think about best benefit, greatest impact. I'm saying the foundation, we can't do everything. We can't do it all, but to find that focal 1 or 2 that we believe we could, again, have long-term impact and opportunities for many, many people for years to come. Because when you go out there and walk, it'd be fun. I'm like, welcome, everybody come out. But please, no, don't. Actually, we have chains. But it is a beautiful piece of property, and it just makes you feel like you're in Wyoming. You're right by some little foothills, and there's a river that runs through it. And, when the leaves were turning this fall, certainly there's some maintenance and some sustainability practices that will need to help enhance and maintain the land, but it's just gorgeous. And to think about kids and families and people of all ages maybe being able to have recreation or educational opportunities, that's exciting for us.
Yeah.
Or even crazy things. Again, this is just dreaming.
Give me your 5-year to 10-year dream of this.
Okay, now you're just asking
yes,
Erin.
That's okay.
But just thinking about, for example, John and I are both from ranching families, generations of ranching families. Actually, my grandparents ranched, and my parents, and that's where I was raised. Same with John. And this is just, again, this is just one idea, and it's nothing is written. But think about a kiddo who maybe has always wanted to raise a 4-H steer or a 4-H pig or a 4-H goat, and they don't have the land or the space or the infrastructure. How cool would it be if they had that opportunity? There's a barn out there because they don't have the land, right? So there's just a lot of potential. Nothing is written down, as Jenny said. And there's lots of ideas from all seven of us, and I would hope that kids and could benefit from being out there. Or one idea, again, this is just an idea about Joey's fly fishing, who he could bring kids out there, and the river is so stunning. Instead of trying to think about reinventing the wheel somewhere else. One of our big goals is to work collaboratively and efficiently, and not reinventing the wheel, where building another $2.7 million building over here, or another capital, another building over there, or another commercial kitchen here or there or wherever. Why can't we work together? Yeah. Or I'm on the rec board, and so one hope is just even over this winter, maybe we get kids to use that gym space. So between the October and November, there are 6,000 uses in all of the SCSD2 buildings, 6,000 different clubs, traveling teams, using all those that gym space from the minute school's out until 10 or 11 o'clock at night. So if the Scott Foundation could provide that gym space and work, again, collaboratively with the school district and the rec department, how great would that be?
Yep.
So there's lots of potential, lots and lots of work, but I think, again, we've got the relationships, so we just need to work on those relationships.
Yeah. And as you guys have been saying it, those are all not written down.
No.
Some of the phone calls I've gotten are hilarious. I won't share.
Yeah.
No.
I think we can imagine. Yeah. Well, and like we had John Curlin in from Antelope Butte, and he's hopeful that maybe they can use that as an AmeriCorps, facility for them or their office or whatever. And so right there, you've got some skiing, another nonprofit. And they're all about education and about safety and education of skiing and outdoor sports. So there's a lot of different uses that we can see, and that's a big piece of property, 200 acres. That's a lot to do, and then not even to mention the building, the facilities that are already there. So that's huge. So no, that's fantastic, and I'm glad we can announce that on here. Anything else? Anything, or maybe some ongoing things that are going on or wrapping up right now?
Well, if you ever go to the hub, you'll see this beautiful piece of art outside the hub that says Scott Legacy of Giving. Scott family, there's a tree. And so one thing that Homer and Mildred and the Scott Foundation have always given to is the hub, the senior center, and really proud of the work that they do. And so they're always really they're forward thinking about the care of folks, older folks, and I think it's really, again, a beautiful location right next to Whitney Commons. So we support and partner with them, and I think that's a need that's not ever going to go away. As our folks, our age here, they need healthy, beautiful spaces to be. So that's ongoing. We are hoping that over time there will be bus shelters. So there's the Little Goose Creek Transit is the only public transportation in Sheridan. And it's really hard if you don't have a car. How do you get around? And so I'm really proud of the hub taking that on. And again, that's a public issue, and it's a private entity that is kind of a nonprofit is taking that on. And so it's really hard here in Sheridan. This year, the summer, our record was 117 we hit in the summer. Wow. And then it, of course, can be 40 below. So if you're waiting for the bus, we had so much fun. Jenny and I rode the entire bus loop together. We had a meeting on the bus, and people were like, "What are you doing?" We're like, "We're having a meeting." So we were maximizing our time and like riding that whole entire route to see who we are serving. So I'm really hopeful and excited about, we're starting with 6 shelters that will be designed and put in on places where the bus stops are, to keep people warm and also then cool, and like in the summers and in the winters. So you just think about the extremes, right? Mm-hmm. So I can't wait to see those. I can't wait.
That's fantastic. I never even thought of, you think about it, but I never thought about that's something that you guys could do. I drive up 5th Street from my house up to the high school for practice, and there's always a gentleman there at one of the stops. And you don't really think about that until you just brought that up about like sometimes it's freaking cold, -30, and you're standing out there waiting for, or like you said, it was 117 this summer. You're standing out there, just standing there. So that's fantastic. I didn't even think of that.
It's really well used. Their bus system is really, it's a needed entity for our community. So it's great.
Absolutely. Well, kind of on the same thread, you guys kind of given me some big long-term goals and some hopes, right? But why should people or why should organizations think of the Scott Foundation for an idea or a project that they may have?
Well, one thing I would note, so we talked about we're the Homer and Mildred Scott Foundation, and Homer and Mildred had 5 children, and 2 are deceased now, but they all 5 will have their own foundations, contributing to nonprofits and charitable causes that they believe in, and pretty much still in the same geographic region, maybe a little bit more in Montana here and there, and where individuals have moved away to live in other parts of the country. And along those lines, in Sheridan, we have found great opportunity to collaborate with other philanthropists here in Sheridan. As you noted earlier, you've interviewed other individuals and foundations, and Sheridan is truly blessed and fortunate, again, with those people who've given back to the community. So terrific. I don't want to name anyone because the list is long.
Yes.
And people who really support this community and people. And I would like to think we've gotten better and continue to get better over time in our relationships and working together, not duplicating, not competing in any way. So when Erin mentioned being a convener, so I think when people have ideas and work that needs to be done, or there's a challenge in the community that we need to address together, I think we're great teammates. We're great team members, and we're well connected to both the nonprofits and the private entities that offer services in the community, but also those that have the opportunity to fund and invest in new initiatives or work that needs to be done in Sheridan. And so, that's why you'd call us, because we are really good team members.
And I say this often, and I'll say it again, I believe that philanthropy is a verb. It's an action thing. It's not just sitting back and writing a check to your favorite darlings that you kind of do year after year. I would say as a foundation, we use the word work. We're willing to do the work and to get out there and not just sit back and hope that, someone else has got that. Because it's complicated, especially when you take on a bold new initiative, or you're trying to move the needle on something. It takes work. So I really believe that philanthropy is a verb, and I would say for generations, trying to instill that as it's being passed down. Quinn Heineman, my son, and he's like, "Why are we doing this?" I'm like, "Well, look at the benefit, and let's go see the benefit. Let's one time, this is years ago, we laid sod at a Habitat for Humanity house, and laying sod in 100-degree weather, and that sticks in their minds. Like, we did it not for ourselves, but for the community. And so I really believe in that. And I would say, we have a mantra that to whom much is given, much is expected. So it's expected. Like, let's figure this out. Let's work. Let's do the good work. Let's do the homework. And, I'm really, really proud to serve on the Homer and Mildred Scott Foundation because I always say we're the tip of the spear, and we send Jenny out there. And so often when we take a lead, people will, because it has our name on it, will trail behind us in a good way, not in a bad way. But so I think it's really, really important to be a leader. So I'm proud of that work.
Awesome. Love that. Last question. What are some current issues in the area that the foundation or you two see that maybe in the next couple of years we hope to take the lead on and to solve? I mean, that NSI building, I think, is maybe a big little key in maybe a couple of those. I mean, that's a big property, but what are some things that you guys have been seeing that need to be addressed or needs that other organizations you guys have been, the Scott Foundation has been talking with about? I guess what are kind of some issues that we've been seeing in Sheridan County?
I'll throw one out that I'm not sure where the Scott Foundation fits, but I think it's really critical for our community, and it's mental health.
Absolutely.
The Center for Vital Community is currently doing a study circles project around mental health challenges in our community. The Scott Foundation has funded some local mental health supports, some actual staff people in certain entities with like the Sheridan Health Clinic. And that's just going to be a critical thing, I think, currently and going forward, to have a plan, to think about what resources we need, what ways can we help support our community moving forward. And so I'm really excited to see what the conversations outcomes are from the Center for Vital Community. They've done work over the last, I think, almost a month they've been meeting with their program. And it's a challenge, but something we all need to, I think, be aware of, and we need to be at the table to help keep our community healthy.
And I would say, and I don't know where the Scott Foundation fits in this, but all foundations, where can we work together across the state for advocacy? So we can't lobby, obviously, but I think it's important to dovetail with our elected officials, because private dollars, there's only so much of that. And so I guess I see that as a statewide initiative. We are really good friends with the Wyoming Community Foundation folks, and other foundations across the state. So it's, again, I mentioned, for example, the bus route, right? So what does that look like about public transportation with the city, with the county, with the state? How do we work with everybody who goes down to Cheyenne? They were in special session, so that all of the stuff that we're working so hard here on, that they're hearing this. And I don't know what that looks like.
Right.
I do think foundations and nonprofits need to have a seat at that table. I just don't know what that looks like and how we can not lobby but partner. And so that I think about that a lot because we're working so hard, and I know they are as well. I just would like there to be a real open door, so that we could work together and not just try to legislate around these issues. Like trying to run around them. Like there are issues that are facing all of us. You'll hear, about housing, right? Workforce, attainable, transitional housing, and that's a statewide issue. Mm-hmm. That's a huge statewide issue, and so how do we move the needle on that? So that's a big question mark for me.
Right. Absolutely. Well, and I think mental health falls into that too. Sheridan's probably not the only one facing mental health challenges, and transportation, public transportation, housing. That's an interesting thought. I like that. Well, awesome. I will say, Jenny, my wife and I know some other ladies that deal with mental health, and I think that's you're hitting it on the head. I think that's something that needs to be addressed in rural America. I think that's a hard thing to get, and I hope to see if the Scott Foundation can solve that problem, or Sheridan in general. Anything else that I missed you two? Anything you two want to say on behalf of the Scott Foundation or the family? Or
this is just a wonderful opportunity, and I hope, I guess my hope would be that we sparked some conversation for you and for others who are listening and being part of your podcast, and that this will I love the idea of a ripple effect. So yes. I hope this creates more ideas and energy and can ripple out from what we're doing today.
Love it. Yeah, no, that's all what we're all about. And send Jenny and Erin a lot of ideas about that NSI property. No, just kidding. Maybe walk through it first with somebody and then send it to them. What's the best way to reach the Homer and Mildred Scott Foundation? Reach out to Jenny?
Sure. Can probably just email. It's pretty straightforward. jenny.craft@scottfoundation.org.
Wonderful. Is that probably the best way you'd like everything filtered through?
Yeah.
Their office is on Main Street if you wanted to pop in, but email sounds best to get a hold of Jenny. And then you probably can find Erin at the school board meetings or anything else.
Yes.
So, well, again, Jenny and Erin, thanks for coming by, and we'll catch everyone next time.
Thank you so much.
This episode of Go Be Wyoming is brought to you by Fly Sheridan. Save time, fly local, fly Sheridan. Sheridan County is becoming one of the busiest airports in the region. Book your direct flight to Denver today via United.com.